Shalom. I want you to think for a second. Think of one of your favorite pieces of artistic expression. Could be painting, could be photography, sculpture, music, whatever, theater. But I want you to think about one of your favorite, absolute favorite pieces of artistic expression. And in thinking about it, do you remember the first time that you took it in? And how it came over you? If you remember, tell us about it for a second. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, Carol.
Thinking of Renner at the Barnes. The colors, I think. Blue with the little girl's dress. Just, it's still it's neat even now, something like that.
Do you remember the first time you saw it?
Quite a few years ago. And I think I was just so impressed with the look on the child's face. Yeah.
Thank you. More art. Josh Sachs. You will have to come off of mute.
I'm thinking something in the music line. The first time I heard the Beatles song "Let It Be," it was the first Beatles song that I heard new, because I was only about 5 or 6, and a babysitter played it for me. And all of a sudden, I heard my parents most into classical and folk.
Okay.
So it was just an amazing experience for me to hear like a different kind of music in a way that was really enjoyable, shared with somebody that cared for me and I cared for them at the time. It was special.
Thank you for that one in particular, because it's evoking like who you were with in that place as well. Not just the piece of art, not just how it came over you, but actually who you were sharing it with. More art, friends. Yes, Havel.
I really like embroidery. The first time I did it was during COVID, and I was going kind of stir crazy.
Okay.
And I did not have an embroidery hoop. I did not have an embroidery needle. I did not have embroidery thread.
That would make it difficult.
How'd it go for you?
Bad.
Okay.
But I took some regular thread, and it's just thicker for embroidery thread, and I used a regular needle. And I sort of held the fabric and I made a little flower. And it just felt so good to have something.
Was it that you made it? Was it the sort of being trapped in the COVID thing and having this little piece of brightness? Like, what was that feeling like?
I think I get the feeling every time, just like satisfied, like even if it didn't turn out how I wanted, I created something and I put it in the world and I tried.
Cool. That feeling of having made something and put it out into the universe, into the cosmos. Michael, do I see a hand with you?
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm also going back to the world of music, and I thought of Simon and Garfunkel as being one of my favorite groups. And I remember getting the Bridge Over Troubled Waters album. Actually, what I remember mostly is that my sister got that album, but I appropriated it. And I remember the first time I heard Bridge Over Troubled Waters, it made me feel good because I probably was blue at the time. And it was nice to know that someone might care about you and help you through difficult times. And I also thought it's the reason why Art Garfunkel is in this world, because of the way he delivered that song.
Beautiful. Being seen by the thing, by the art. That's pretty remarkable. Thinking of a few different elements here, that both it's something of your creation, it's something that takes you in with its just majesty, its colors, it's something that connects you to other people, it's something that lets you feel seen in a way you hadn't before. I remember when I must have been 14 or 15. And I remember when I heard Jimi Hendrix for the first time. And it was like listening to like electricity or something. It was like, what is this? What is happening here? It felt like it was beyond it was beyond understanding or rationalization or an intellectual construct. Just like this feeling of this thing that this person's doing. I still remember that feeling like, what is this? The reason I'm asking about all of this intersects with this week's parsha. We have the election of the famous biblical artisan, Bezalel. This is an interesting one. I love sitting with this. If you thought I was going with the golden calf, I'm not. We'll see if I feel like it tomorrow. But the way it frames Bezalel is it frames him not as having an eye that nobody else had, or having an ear that no one else had, or having a need to put something in the world in the same way, but it frames him as being imbued with something holy, something of God. When I think about like the debates and stuff in like contemporary society about like, funding for arts programs or whatever, and like, is it necessary? Is it important? Is it useful? Is it whatever? Like, sometimes art gets treated as something that maybe is extraneous or secondary or tertiary to the science and mathematics and the hard sciences and engineering and sort of whatever else. Like maybe it's nice to have, but it's not essential. It's not important, you know? And it's interesting to me to think about the Torah saying, no, actually, you have to seize on this guy and lift him up because he's an artist and because God moves through him in a way that is expressed through art. It makes me think a little bit actually about the splitting of the sea when the Israelites cross. Who did that? Who split the sea? Could be. What's the other answer? There you go. And so maybe God split the sea. Maybe Moses split the sea. Maybe Moses was inspired by God. Maybe God was working through Moses to do this thing. I don't know, actually. I don't know exactly what the like scientific, way the God energy went in and then comes out and then the sea goes this way and what. I don't know, but somehow you get this figure who does this incredible thing. And you know that God is involved, and you're not really sure where the person ends and God begins and where those lines actually are. And it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't even matter where the person ends and where God begins, or where God begins and the person ends, all of that. Somehow the idea, though, is what's moving through that person is divine, is holy. It's what God says about Bezalel and his election as this artist. Well, he's imbued, he's full of this spirit from God. It makes me think about art differently, actually, to frame it as something like sacred like that. And I think about like the middle school art appreciation class that I had to take and like hated every second of it. And it was all like straight up religious art too. It was all like, here's Michelangelo's David, or like God stuff or Jesus stuff or whatever. And like, oh, isn't that so holy and whatever. And I was like, wow, this feels like the opposite of holiness to me. Largely because I was a middle schooler and bored and unsophisticated and whatever else then. Not that I've developed such a fine and acute appreciation of like medieval Christian art anyway.
Yeah.
But it was kind of lost on me in that time that art maybe was holy or sacred, or there was something in which it was funneling, channeling, reflecting some piece of godliness in the world. And this is why I actually asked that first question about like, what was it like? What do you remember about that experience of it? And I find that to be actually very instructive. Carol talking about the Renoir, was it? It reminds me of various experiences people will have that sort of overflow, that it's like you almost don't know what even to say in reflection to it. And so if you're Jewish, maybe you just say, Oseh Ma'aseh Bereshit, blessed is the one who makes wonders of creation. Thinking about Josh framing it as something that came out of his experience, but somehow connected him with other people around him. Avala's idea that it was this idea of creating something into the world, or even this idea that maybe you're actually seen, that Michael gave us. Maybe in a moment where you feel really alone or really bereft, that somebody sees you. Someone gets it, that you're understood actually. If those aren't divine expressions, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. And so in that way, I want to use Betzalel as something as an invitation. Whatever that piece of art was that came to mind for you, go take it in again. Go take it in and take something else in too. Let it wash over you. Return to that time if you can, even if you remember it, what it was like the first time you heard it or saw it, or it saw you, who you were with, who it connected you with. And let it stir a little bit of godliness and holiness in your life. In the name of Betzalel, the one who, went and did art for the Israelites, but really it was just because he was filled with some holiness that he had to put into the world. Shabbat Shalom.